Good morning and welcome to Ireland AM. It's Virgin Media One.
It is. It's
We're
Tuesday,
here.
the 3rd of October.
Yes.
And here's what's coming up on the show today.
Now, with a projected €1 billion overspend on our health budget, we're looking at how digitising our health service could cut costs and potentially save lives.
It's the sort of thing you think would have happened already with records and certainly within the Garda Síochána as well. But anyway, chatting about that in just a little while. Plus, we're delving into TikTok's dark side. I don't think you have to go too far to find the dark side of TikTok after the social media giant found a network of accounts aimed at creating conflict amongst Irish users. That's coming up at 7:45 this morning.
Very interesting. And for something totally different, acting legend, so looking forward to this. Miriam Margolyes is going to be sharing laughs about her life at 8:15. Absolutely adore that woman. After you, she's my second favourite.
Oh, thank you. I'm taking that on board for the rest of my life. I need to just get the potty mouth like her. I was reading her book and the first page I was like...
She's brilliant. She doesn't care. She literally does not care.
I wish that you could bottle her and just take her as a vitamin every day. Derek is going to be in the largest walled city park later on
That's the
this
Phoenix
morning.
Park. We have the largest city walled park in Europe.
We certainly do. He's going to be chatting with the rutting deer. We just hope he doesn't get too close.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day.
But before all that, let's go over to the Virgin Media News Hub. Here's Geraldine Lynagh.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning. Rank and file Gardaí are withdrawing from voluntary overtime today in their ongoing row over staff rosters. It's the first of 5 days of protest and an escalation of the GRA's objection to the new schedule, due to come into effect on November the 6th.
This is the first day in the ongoing row over rosters that Gardaí are withdrawing from voluntary overtime. Members of the Garda Representative Association will also refuse voluntary overtime on consecutive Tuesdays for the rest of the month, including Budget Day next week and Halloween at the end of the month. The GRA is also planning to fully withdraw their labour on November 10th if the dispute is not resolved. The Garda Commissioner is planning to move officers to a new 6 days on, 4 days off working schedule from November 6th, with rank and file Gardaí describing this as unworkable. The GRA saying it won't enter talks unless Drew Harris defers the start date of the new schedule. Commissioner Harris has said that he is willing to compromise to reach an agreement, but will implement the roster change planned for November 6th. A breakthrough in this row not forthcoming for now. Trish Laverty, Virgin Media News.
3 men are due in court today, charged in connection with a major drug seizure off the Cork coast last week. €157 million worth of cocaine was discovered on the cargo ship the MV Matthew following a major military operation. 3 men will appear before Mallow District Court this morning. 1 other person remains in Garda custody. The details of Budget 2024 will be discussed when Cabinet Ministers meet today. It's exactly a week until Budget Day, when the package of financial supports and measures will be revealed. The government wants to put money back into people's pockets due to the cost of living crisis, and low and middle income families are set to gain the most. The budget is expected to include household energy credits, an increase in social welfare benefits, another drop in college fees, and cuts to the universal social charge. Former US President Donald Trump has described his civil fraud case as a scam. The trial, which started yesterday in a Manhattan courtroom, has heard that Mr. Trump lied about how much he and his property were worth to get more favourable bank loans and lower insurance premiums. The case could cost Trump, who's running in the presidential election, $250 million in fines and a ban on running businesses in New York.
This trial was railroaded and fast-tracked. This trial could have been brought years ago, but they waited till I was right in the middle of my campaign. The same with other trials and indictments. It's all run by DOJ, which is corrupt in Washington. Everything goes through them. They're all corrupt people. Frankly, our country is corrupt. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. We're going to straighten it out.
Criminal barristers are striking today in a row over fees. The Bar of Ireland says fees for criminal barristers remain below 2002 levels following a range of cuts. They claim barristers have suffered a drop in pay of more than 40% over the past 20 years, while every other group of workers in the criminal justice system has seen their pay restored. Alone had its busiest year ever in 2022. The charity that works with older people says it provided 22,300 supports to the elderly last year, which is the highest number in its 45-year history. The supports include its befriending service and help with housing and technology. A 9-year-old girl who went missing while camping with her family in upstate New York has been found safe after apparently being abducted. Police say a 47-year-old man was arrested after he allegedly dropped off a ransom note at Charlotte Senna's home, and the child was later found in a cabinet at the suspect's mother's home. 400 people had been involved in searching for the 9-year-old after she failed to return while out for a bike ride in a park near Albany. US House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy is facing a fight for his political survival after a hardliner in his own party filed a rarely used motion to oust him. Matt Gaetz, a far-right Republican from Florida, is attempting to use the procedural tool called a motion to vacate to try to strip McCarthy of his office. It comes after Kevin McCarthy relied on Democrats to provide the necessary votes to fund the government and avoid a shutdown at the weekend. The motion to vacate must be voted on within 2 days. Finally, for now, a massive fireball lit up the night sky in Oxfordshire in the UK last night after lightning struck a waste processing facility. Videos of the blaze were shared on social media by local residents who were reportedly told to stay indoors and close their windows. Before the fireball was spotted, a weather warning for thunderstorms and heavy rain in the area was issued by Britain's National Weather Agency.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
Thank you, Ger, and a very good morning. We're broadcasting here live from the Phoenix Park in Dublin here this Tuesday. Coming up later on this morning, we're talking all things fallow deer. Of course, rutting season in full swing at the moment, so we're going to be catching up with the local park ranger, Terry, here later on this morning at 8:45, so stay with us for that. Now, we're on to the 3rd of October. Let's pull back the curtains on your Tuesday morning with Oife Moore with us on cameras, and you'll be glad to hear so many dry and settled start out there this morning. Nice sunrise coming up onto the east coast, but elsewhere we are seeing showers there through parts of Armagh, Fermanagh, South Donegal, and parts of East Galway through Ballinasloe, Athenry, and just east of Galway City at the moment. Also up around the Shannon Estuary there on the Limerick-Clare border, so stay nice and dry if you're in that neck of the woods. And you will notice those winds are quite pacey out there this morning, locally strong there from the west. Now across the day, those winds will strengthen as they veer to the southwest. They will be strong and gusty for a time, especially off coastal regions. And out there today, it is once again that mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. Brighter spells winning out as the day goes on. That sunshine turning hazy in nature, and a fresher, cooler feel out there today as well, with top temps of around 13 to 17 degrees. Into tonight, we will see some light isolated showers. That's where it'll kick off clear and dry. As the night goes on, then we will see that cloud cover thicken, and we will see showers then begin to develop through the northwest, and that will certainly have a knock-on effect then into Wednesday morning, and another bit of a nip in the air out there tonight as well, with values back to around 6 to 12 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in a fresh and breezy Phoenix Park at the moment. We'll be back again live at 7:35.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
It's time now to take a look at this morning's papers. We're going to start with the Irish Times. And the headline there this morning, Garda HQ prepare to order GRA members to do overtime. The GRA has voted to withdraw voluntary overtime. That starts today. They're going to do it every Tuesday in October. Garda management are willing to make the overtime order if required, and have assured government the ongoing industrial dispute will not have any major impact on frontline policing.
€12 rise in pensions now on cards in budget 2024. Social welfare is also due to increase by €12 per week, and a lump sum payment of the fuel allowance are at the centre of the budget negotiations, and that's the front of the Irish Independent.
The Examiner leads with warning over surge in Strep A cases. Cases of potentially fatal invasive Group A strep are 4.5 times higher than expected this year, with young children in particularly affected, the Health Protection Surveillance Centre has said.
McEntee warned to take back control. Justice Minister Helen McEntee has been warned she has a week to avert a full-blown crisis at her department as criticism mounts from coalition allies, Gardaí and the legal fraternity. That's the story on the Daily Mail.
The Mirror goes with Irish boy aged 11 sexually assaulted on Holiday Island. It's claimed a man grabbed the outside of the boy's trousers as he played in a pool in Tenerife last month. The man has been charged.
The Sun leads with Hutch widow. The feud is over. Yesterday, Daniel Kinahan's associate Michael Carroll was sentenced to 22 years over the attempted murder of John Hutch. His widow Vera Hutch has been told the feud is over.
The Star and the Herald also lead with that same story. Now, coming up, we were talking about this yesterday. We're going to meet the former HSE executive who said he thought he had, and this is a direct quote, died and gone to hell when he started working for the HSE.
We'll see after this break. Now, the former HSE Director of Digital Transformation, Professor Martin Curley, has claimed the HSE's use of Victorian-like tools has come at the cost of patients' lives.
And we would love to hear from people who are involved in the HSE. Indeed, if you've got someone who is in hospital all the time, or if you've got some experience, we'd love to hear from you. 089 611 111. Martin is here with us to discuss this morning what we were looking at in the papers yesterday. Martin, it's lovely to have you here, and thank you so much for coming in. You left your job back in January. You're a professor in Maynooth as well, so you're doing quite a lot. Can you tell us digital transformation and innovation at the HSE? I don't think of innovation and the HSE kind of in the same way, unfortunately. What was your job? What was meant to happen?
Great. Well, thanks for having me. And hello to your viewers. So I saw a real opportunity to transform healthcare using digital technology. And I spent 30 years in the technology industry. I worked with great companies like Intel and GE and Philips and MasterCard. I'd actually written a book. I had the privilege of advising the European Commission on innovation strategy. Myself and a colleague from the Commission, both as innovation practitioners, but studying, we figured out how do you actually transform an industry? And healthcare is the industry that is most behind in digitization. We can do our banking, we can buy an airline ticket, we can listen to music, but we can't do digitization in healthcare. So I originally joined the HSE as the CIO and 20 years ago, and this isn't about the books, I've written a book about how do you fix broken IT organizations. And I came into the HSE as the CIO, and actually I quickly figured out this was a bigger job than I could do because there were so many issues, but I felt we could actually transform our healthcare system using digital technology and using a technique. And if I can give you some examples, like I'm wearing a device, it's called a PAN. It's developed by an Irish company. Falls is a massive issue in Ireland. It costs €1 billion. Many people, 1 in 3 or 4 people that fall don't go home. 1 in 5 die. This is a device, and if I fall, I get a call through my phone in 20 seconds from a team in Bunclody saying, Martin, you've just fallen, are you okay? If I'm unconscious, they'll send the fire brigade. I know many instances where this has saved lives. I'll give you another example. Here's a device. I think our healthcare system should revolve around the phone. But this is a device, it's called Aware. It's developed by a Scottish company. And one of the most important things we're in hospital are being monitored is something called vital signs. So this is actually measuring your temperature, your breathing rate, your pulse rate. One of the main things we need to do in Ireland before electronic health record is to put what we call vital signs automation into the hospitals. But today, this device, I can put it on my arm, and the doctors and nurses and even a computer can monitor, see my temperature's gone up, my heart. But can I tell you, David Hungary is the developer of this. He's a Scot. I was just looking, his last post was the 23rd of April, but he had a heart attack, went to hospital, was recovering, unfortunately contracted an infection in the hospital and died. So I actually feel a personal legacy to Dave.
To move this on.
We have the highest acute occupancy. Our hospitals are the fullest in Europe, but we can move much of the hospital work to home. People want to stay at home, and we can provide them better care or as good care in the home.
Martin, you seem to be jumping ahead there. Like, a lot of our hospitals are using paper records. Like, we're not even digitised, are we?
Like, I can see you walking in and saying all this to them, and they're going, we're still writing down stuff on bits of paper here.
I know it is, unfortunately, and Michael Porter is a very famous Harvard professor, but he said we have 21st century clinicians with 21st century technology using Victorian-style tools. That was 15 years ago. And many countries around the world have implemented electronic health records, except for Ireland. We're the laggard in Europe.
Can I ask you then, why are we not doing it? Is it money? Is it do they not want? Like, what's happening?
We are swimming in money. I gave a diagnosis. I spoke to the Irish Hospital Consultants Association on Saturday. I was actually in New York last week at the UN, and a lot of people are buying in. I want your listeners to hear a strategy, something called Stay Left, Shift Left 10X. I'm going to repeat that. But if we look at Ireland's health system as a patient, we have most magnificent clinicians, some of the hardest working, most brilliant people work in our health service. But we're the second biggest spender in the world on health per capita. We have the lowest electronic health maturity. We have the highest amount of respiratory admissions in Europe, despite having the youngest population, despite having the cleanest air. We have heart failure as the #1 cause of death. We have an 18-month waiting list for what's called an echo test. 1 in 5 people with a heart failure diagnosis will die in the first year. So we have people waiting and before they even get to do this, they will die. So there are technology advances. I have a technology.
My God, you're like a magician here. There's just stuff coming out of your pockets.
So we were in New York last week, and myself and an Irish doctor, John Sheehan, we're mobilizing a global movement around this strategy called Stay Left, Shift Left 10X. This is a major advance. This plugs into a phone. It's a mobile digital ultrasound tool. And 200 years, the stethoscope was invented. For 200 years, doctors have been trained to listen and guess. With this, they can look and see.
They can see.
So I brought John Martin. He's the chief medical officer of Butterfly to New York last year. Or last week he talked about it. He carries this in hospital or on a plane. And when people say, is there a doctor on the plane? He can bring it. But he diagnosed his own throat cancer using this. And to give you a personal story, a couple of years ago, I was speaking at a digital medicine hospital or a conference in, I think it was Berlin. I had this terrible pain. So I went to a local hospital. I looked up where's the nearest hospital. I actually set the timer to see how quick I was seeing. I was actually seeing about 2 minutes and 37 seconds in A&E. Can you imagine that happening in Ireland?
No.
But anyway, I came back to Ireland. They gave me some pain medicine. I came to one of our big teaching hospitals. I was in terrible pain. My blood pressure was off the scale. And the nurse, she was really good, but I have to say she was really despondent. I was actually trying to motivate her, but she said, Martin, we know who you are, but you need an ultrasound, but you need a bed for that. It's going to take 24 hours. In the future, Ireland should be the first country in the world to actually adopt this, so the nurse can actually scan
But Martin, we know that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in the immediate, but not in the immediate term. But like we were looking at comments you made yesterday, where you said the HSE was like working in hell. I mean, what is wrong? Why are we not? If we are the second highest on spending in health in the world. What's going wrong? Is it digitization? Is that the main cause? Because that's what you were brought in to try and change.
Well, there's lots of issues. I think there's leadership, there's accountability, there's culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And Ireland probably has one of the best strategies in the world. All parties agree with it, but Winston Churchill said, you know, no matter how beautiful the strategy, you occasionally need to look at the results. And results are terrible. So what I'm advocating is we leapfrog as a country. We are so far behind what almost every other Western country has done in the last 15 years. We're about to do. We could spend 800 or $1 billion, and I even don't believe that we're going to do it, even though there's a new strategy coming out. It actually won't happen. So we have to decide as a country, enough is enough. We actually have a proposal. We actually have this working. Patients should be, our healthcare should be built around the patient. So we talk about Copernican shifts. So some of your viewers might have heard of Copernicus. He was the guy that said, actually, you know what? The Earth revolves around the sun. It took about 200 years for that to be adopted. But there's some really simple shifts that can happen. The first is from illness to wellness. We spend 97% of our budget on illness. So we choose in Ireland to give care in the most expensive place at the last possible moment. If we just increase that 3%
to the wellness side of it.
Wellness, maybe just 9%. So what we had...
preventative. You just think we can move to preventative.
So what did we propose? We actually had working. We had the digital minister, Robert Troy, launch this in Mullingar. You can go to your pharmacy, you get a 15-minute health check. It tells you what your risk factors are. You leave with a personal electronic health record. You leave with a Fitbit. And you proactively, like if we find something, right, and they actually found an issue with me, you know, high blood pressure, I was able to go and get it addressed. We had to send a couple of people to actually A&E because they actually had...
Martin, can you honestly see this coming in the short term here, things like this?
Certainly not with the HSE.
Not with the HSE, as it stands
Because
at the
my
moment.
management
You were
blocked this. Despite having the digital minister launching this, we had two of the top doctors in the country.
Can I just ask you were saying there should be an internal inquiry into the HSE. Why?
Well, I haven't said that in public,
no,
but certainly, Stan Toler, he's a leadership guru, he says, making a decision starts a chain reaction. We actually have to make a decision to do this. When I left the HSE, I'm not particularly interested in the limelight. I want to save lives. I want to extend lives. I said, Muhammad Ali used to say, to be a champion, you need the will and the skill, but the will has to exceed the skill. And we actually don't have the competency, but we don't have the will to do. This is easy. It's paint by numbers. Hundreds of countries, well, not hundreds, there aren't, 100 countries have done this. Can I give an example? One story that exemplifies, really good nurse in Ireland adopted a digital technology in a Midlands hospital. Heart failure, normal readmission rate is 30%. She adopted a digital respiratory technology developed on her own with a couple of her, and she didn't have a single readmission in a year. She was bullied out of that hospital.
What do you mean she was bullied out?
She was bullied, absolutely.
Why was she bullied?
Let me finish. She was told, stop that, we don't do that here. So she went to Basra just to clear her head. She went to Iraq. Then, 2 months later, she went to the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's a very poor country. There's lots of corruption. She was texting me. She was really concerned, because their passports were taken. They had to pay money to actually get their passports back. But the hospital she was working in had an electronic health record for 15 years. So this is one of the poorest countries, nothing like the governance or the government we have, and they're using electronic.
But she saw differently to how she was actually
exactly.
operating
So
in Ireland.
we have to decide as a country, we can actually leap ahead. I want to be really positive. We actually can leap ahead. We can design a whole new digital health system around the phone.
Martin, there's some very big claims that you have certainly made there. I think it's very interesting for anyone who's listening as to what we can do in preventative. We'd love to know what you think about this, 0896 111 111, because it seems like it's something that could be done, even digitising our records. It's been fascinating to talk to you. I know that you said that it was like you died and gone to hell when you went into the HSE. Hopefully it wasn't like that this morning. Professor of Innovation at Maynooth University and former Director of Digital Transformation and Innovation at the HSE, Martin Curley, and your bag of tricks. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Martin. We appreciate it.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates in Virgin Media One.
Yes, Ger, we're live here from the Phoenix Park in Dublin this morning. We'll give you a quick update on the weather, and it's a bright and breezy start, you'll be glad to hear, holding mainly dry and settled with some heavier showers through the northwest now, through parts of eastern Galway as well. So stay nice and dry if you're in that neck of the woods with those moderate to locally fresh westerly winds. Across the day, those winds will veer to the southwest, and in fact they will be fresh and gusty for a time, especially around coastal regions. Sunshine becoming a little bit more hazier as the day goes on, and a bite in the air out there today as well. 13 to around 17 degrees at best. Into tonight, dry with the odd isolated shower, clear to start, then cloud will thicken up, becoming countrywide, with rain then in through the northwest, and overnight lows there at nippy 2 at 7 to 11 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up for now. I have to go and try and find a herd of deer here in the Phoenix Park, and we'll be back again live at 8.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates in Virgin Media One.
Welcome back now. As rows over rosters rumble on, some members of An Garda Síochána are withdrawing from voluntary overtime. That is starting today.
Yes, meanwhile, criminal barristers are holding their first ever strike today. Joining us to discuss all this is News Talk's Andrea Gilligan. Good morning to Andrea. And Justice Minister Helen McEntee under a bit of pressure this week as well.
Like, we're talking about the guts of nearly 11,000 members of the Garda Representative Association. These are the people that we see every day, boots out in the ground, the rank and file members. They're going to withdraw from voluntary overtime from today, and this is going to happen every Tuesday for the rest of this month. Like, it's a sort of a funny situation, I imagine, for most people watching, because you might ask, what's voluntary?
Exactly.
What is voluntary overtime? And the guards are in a kind of a peculiar situation insofar as that, you know, you're scheduled to work X number of hours. You can decide yourself to volunteer to work overtime, or if you happen to be on a case or something happens, you know, senior management can say to you, actually, Alan, you have to stay on tonight. So they don't operate like you or I or many other people watching. So they're going to withdraw from the voluntary overtime from today. This is all over this row over rosters. So what's happening on the 6th of November is that they're going to revert back to the old Westmanstown roster, which is basically that you worked for 6 days and you had 4 days off.
Because it changed during COVID. This is the thing.
Yeah, it changed during COVID to the 4 on 4 off, where you worked 4 12-hour shifts and you then got 4 days off in lieu of that. That has suited an awful lot more guards for multiple different reasons, particularly if you're travelling to the station you work in, areas around childcare, and just in general from a kind of a work-life balance. I mean, if you're going to be in for 4 days, you might as well work 12 hours as opposed to doing 6 days over the course of 10 hours in the day. So it's very much the guards' preference to continue to do the 4 on 4 off. It wasn't unique solely to COVID. There were actually other previous occasions and around dignitaries and visits and trips, but it was primarily really, it became known as kind of the COVID roster as such. The guards now want to stick with that. They had planned, they were due to enter into and are still due to enter into talks with Drew Harris and other Garda unions around this. But the Garda Commissioner had made the announcement that they, despite the fact that they will enter into talks about it, they will revert back to the old 6 on 4 off on the 6th of November. And that's where this announcement came then last week, that we're effectively going to protest, if you want to call it that, as of today.
Well, the Drew flu, as they're calling it.
Yeah, and things can escalate.
Can I ask you, when it comes to the voluntary roster, when it comes to voluntary overtime, is this pertinent? Is it something that we need so that we've got enough patrols on the streets?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the guards themselves would say, I mean, it is a force that is reliant, you know, on overtime.
So this is, we're going to see the effect of this very quickly.
We are, but it's interesting in that Helen McEntee, the Justice Minister, was out over the weekend and has said that she has been reassured by the Garda Commissioner that, you know, numbers will not be depleted. We will have the manpower that we require, which I suppose if you're some of the stories in the papers today shows that, you know, the guards can still, despite the voluntary overtime not happening, Garda management can still direct, you know, Muireann or Alan.
But at the same time, Andrea, she also said that if we keep up with this roster, it doesn't provide the visibility and the presence on the ground that people are demanding.
Yeah. And things have changed. I mean, and like the guards have been under pressure in Garda management in recent weeks. I mean, we've heard about, we've talked about, you have too, the number of attacks, violent assaults, the lack of the Garda presence in and around the capital city. And you know, because of that, the Garda Commissioner, Drew Harris, has now said the current roster of the 4 on 4 off does not meet the current demands and requirements that we have within the force, and that's why they're looking to shift it back to 6-4.
And tell us, what's happening with the criminal barristers then? Why are they striking today?
The guards aren't the only people within the wheels of power, you know, or the wheels of justice that are striking today. The barristers, criminal barristers in particular, are launching their first ever strike, and this is all over the criminal legal aid funding, because that was reduced back during the
2009 and 2010,
the economic downturn, effectively 2002. Those levels have never actually increased since then. So it's to do with the legal aid that you often hear talked about. And people, the barristers in particular, who would be the criminal defence barristers, are the people, I suppose, mainly affected by this. So they're going to withdraw services over the legal aid fees in the hope that they could maybe enter into negotiations and talks too.
And that's happening between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. today. And if you were involved in the criminal justice system, you know how backed up that already is. So we'd love to hear from you today in relation to the guards,
Cases
or if you've got a case that's meant to be coming up. 0896 111 111. Is it something that you're thinking about in any way, shape or form, especially when it comes to the guards? Now, we're going to move on very quickly. And this is something that... This is to do with people who are buying houses. What's going on?
Oh, yeah, this is the hike in the interest rates on the local authority housing. So this local authority home loan scheme is a state-funded or state-provided supported scheme. And it was basically introduced to help people who are first-time buyers who can't get a mortgage or couldn't get a mortgage or weren't being approved through the traditional lenders that we know of. There was support, I suppose, effectively, or certainly state-supported provision provided for you. Those fixed rates are now going to rise from about about 0.65%. Now, it's a pretty sudden jump on the rates. If you're currently somebody who has been approved for a local authority home loan, it stays as it is. But the fixed rates will rise on mortgages. I think it's up to 25 years, and for mortgages over or up to 30 years as well. Now, what's interesting about this is that the department has actually come out and said that, despite all of that, these rates are actually really competitive when you compare them to the other long-term fixed loans that you would draw down from traditional commercial lenders.
Well, people have bought houses and they might be able to actually service the mortgage that's on them.
And for people who were struggling to get a big enough loan, I suppose, to buy homes in the first place, if they'd previously gone sale agreed on them, they're now going to be in a position.
Alan just asked us a little while ago, we'll have more on that story at some stage, but Alan just asked us a minute ago, what's Airtel? Do you know what Airtel is?
Is it the thing that was on the... I don't really know. On the telly, no?
Why is Airtel in the news? Do you know what that is?
No, but what is it?
What's Airtel, Andrea?
I don't know whether to call it... I mean, having talked to Alan off air today, the only way I can describe it is to say it's like rolling news for culchies is probably the best way I can...
So the dubs don't get it, do they not?
You didn't know what it was. Myself and Muireann had to explain what Airtel was. Airtel was basically...
part of my life.
How was that integral part?
Cinema listings.
Yeah, exactly. I was just
you
going
went
to
on
use
and
the
you
cinema
saw.
listings. Yeah, so it was basically pre-internet. I mean, this is my first moment, really, as somebody who's in their late 30s, that I've had to say, back in my day when we had Airtel before the internet
would you get
came
it?
along. On your TV.
telly. You pressed a button and Airtel came on.
So you went on to Airtel, you got your news updates, you got your sports updates, you got your cinema listings.
Your flights.
It was
Departures
Google.
and arrival were always
Google
on
Airtel. It was Google before the internet. That's
anyway,
what it was. It was
just
amazing.
to let you know, Airtel is to be switched off after 40 years.
Introduced in 1986. They announced this actually a number of years ago as part of the cost-cutting measures through RTE, but it is now
Muireann
going
would be saying a prayer. Muireann and Andrea would be saying a prayer at the time it's been switched off.
It's stopping on the 12th. We have to go. We're being murdered in our ear. 0896 111 111. Airtel Memories, the cinema listings. It's so good. Thank you so much, Andrea Gilligan from News Talk. Back to you in Ireland AM very shortly. Welcome back. Now, in the news the other day, it was about a report from TikTok, and it revealed that the social media giant had uncovered and shut down a secretive operation to influence Irish users and encourage conflict.
It's very James Bond, isn't it? Here to discuss is senior analyst with the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, Aoife Gallagher.
Hi,
Good
Aoife.
morning to you, Aoife.
Morning.
Tell us more about this. What was this?
Yeah, so this is a report that TikTok released under its obligations under the EU Code of Practice on Disinformation, which is a kind of voluntary thing that most of the platforms have signed up to. And it means that they have to make efforts to tackle false information on their platforms. So a lot of the platforms have been, releasing these reports for a number of years. And this is, I think, the second one that TikTok has released under this, specific code or whatever. But these kinds of campaigns go on all the time. One thing that, researchers in the field, like what I'm in, one thing that is we know quite certainly is that whatever is in these reports is the tip of the iceberg, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were these accounts doing? What were they saying, the disinformation, and what are the motives?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to tell, right? So TikTok, it's, we're at the whim of the platforms for what information they give us. So, they said that they were involved in a covert influence campaign, I think is the way they put it.
Some accounts were, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
My guess, I suppose, from looking at these things is that it was probably a coordinated set of accounts that were involved in spreading quite divisive and polarising kind of information, probably misleading and false claims, more than likely about immigration, because it did say that it was kind of about Irish nationalism. So that would be my guess. Figuring out who is behind these is next to impossible. It's really, really hard to do. Figuring out the motive then behind them is, again, really, really hard to do. But again, going back to what we know about the kind of people and kind of organisations that would spread this kind of information is that it's about, polarising society, kind of about creating, identifying wedge issues and then fanning the flames.
Because when we saw recently those protests outside the Dáil and people were going, this is now going a step further than the type of protests we've seen before.
Yeah.
Do you think this
is where there was gallows, where people were put up on gallows, pictures of gallows of politicians from all political persuasions?
Yeah. I mean, those protests are motivated by a lot of things, offline and online, but there is no doubt about it that social media is a huge contributing factor.
Yeah.
People are falling into rabbit holes online, and they're falling into rabbit holes mainly, there's loads of different reasons for it, but a lot of it is to do with the way the algorithm algorithms power these platforms.
I was just going to ask you that. So if I'm on TikTok, how do I start falling into that rabbit hole?
Well, this is the thing. On a platform like TikTok especially, you don't get to choose what you see. It is an algorithm that powers what you see, right?
So things start popping up.
Yes, exactly. And the algorithms are driven by content that drives engagement. And what content drives engagement? Divisive, outrageous content, false information a lot of the time as well. So, I mean, this is a huge issue. It's not going away, and it seems to be honest, to not be getting much better as time goes on.
Because you're working within this, and I'm sure sometimes you're like, what is going on? I think it was put to me a few years ago, very simply. They're like, the world is round. But when you type in the world is round, a video will come up, we'll say, on YouTube that will say, no, the world is flat. Because then you start arguing, going, no, and you stay on the platform for longer.
Yes,
which is the end game, right? Because they're driven by advertising. The more time you stay on the platform, the more money they're making.
Yeah, you're bang on.
Is that
exactly?
it?
That's exactly how the platforms work. They want your eyes on the screens for as long as possible so they can target you with ads so they can make more money.
Which is the same as traditional media, right?
Yeah,
same as when you open a paper, except we're trying not to give disinformation.
Yeah, but there's no checks and balances on social media. Do you know what I mean? You have editorial standards, you have, there's laws there that you have to kind of abide by and things like that.
And so was this the platform themselves then policing themselves and sawing this? Or was this complaints? Do we know, or we'll...
I think it's a bit of both. There's a bit of reporting that goes on, and then there's a bit of what they would detect as well. But the other thing that we know from, and not just TikTok, kind of other platforms as well, and this comes from kind of whistleblower allegations over the past few years, is that the teams on the platforms that are dedicated to looking at this stuff are really, really poorly resourced.
Yeah.
So again, this kind of goes back to
they're making billions, but then they won't put the money into that.
Yes, exactly. So it kind of goes back to, they're scratching the surface here a lot of the time for what they actually are transparent about.
Because reports like this, them putting money into stuff like that, it's counterintuitive to them making money, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to kind of go, they're really trying, is it?
Exactly,
Or
it is.
not?
But then, I mean, we have, the EU Code of Practice. The Digital Services Act is also this kind of sweeping piece of legislation that's now come in at an EU level, and that is meant to essentially tackle these issues on platforms. And it's given the platforms are kind of threatened with very, very large fines if they don't actually conform to these regulations. But we're in the very, very early days of it, to be honest.
So it's all emerging.
Yeah.
Aoife, you work in this. You're looking at this stuff all the time.
Yes.
Are you hopeful for the future of people on social media?
That's a big question. I think it depends on the day sometimes.
Wow.
So I think that there's certain things that you can do. Like if I was giving someone advice, I suppose generally, like I think that we should generally be thinking about what social media brings to your life. Because for me, I don't think it brings much to my life. Do you know what I mean? And it depends on the platform and things like that. So I think we should limit the amount of time that we spend on social media, just generally. Yeah. I'm not saying that like social media is all bad, definitely not.
No.
But I mean, when it comes to getting news and stuff like that, you have to get your news from trusted sources. Yeah. If you are simply getting your news from a TikTok feed, you're not getting an accurate portrayal of what's going on in the world.
And just like that, Aoife, always question it. Don't just believe everything that comes up, because there's an awful lot of false information on those platforms.
We say everything.
We say everything correct all the time.
That pregnant pause just made me go, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Aoife Gallagher, Senior Analyst at the Institute for Strategic Dialogue Global. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure. Thank you
very much.
Still to come this morning, a woman who never lies, just says whatever she's thinking. It's Miriam Margolyes is going to be here. She talks mad memories, scandalous secrets, and a legendary life.
Plus, Derek's down with some delightful deer in the Phoenix Park. We'll see in a few minutes.
I'm rushing.
Yeah, rushing. Very welcome back to Ireland Day. We're in our second hour, Muireann.
We are, Bex.
Coming up, we've got racy reads and traditional tunes.
Yes, legend of the silver screen, Miriam Margolyes, talks onions, opinions, and you know what? Just being on the cover of Vogue, which is kind of nice, isn't it?
We just love her. She's coming up very shortly. Stay with us, because I know it's going to be very entertaining.
See, now you've built it up and you're expecting something mad. She might just come on and be very uncontroversial.
No, we'll make her controversial. Ecology expert Eanna Ni Lamhna joins us later with imparting some knowledge on all things wild and wonderful.
The Irish version of Miriam Margolyes is Eanna Ni
really
Lamhna, actually,
isn't
to be fair.
Yeah.
So, nice. And also folk songstress Aoife Scott. The wonderful Aoife Scott chats about women of note and carrying on the Black family's musical legacy.
Edward Hayden's in the kitchen this morning. What have you got for us, Edward?
Now, we've got a gorgeous supper option for you
supper.
this morning. Gorgeous
Mrs. Bouquet,
supper,
bouquet.
absolutely. I have my
Candlelight
candles ready for the candlelight supper and the Royal Doulton. What I'm going to do, some lovely sweet and sticky chicken thighs, and I'm serving those with the gorgeous noodle stir fry.
Would you have that for your dinner, no?
Well, it would all depend what time you'd be having it, you know?
It would, indeed.
Yeah.
What time is supper at?
Dinner or no dinner, we'll dine at 1.
Dinner or no dinner, we'll
supper.
dine at 1. That's it. Okay, we're having supper, okay? Just be posh for 5 seconds. Try to be posh.
I'm from Ballyfermot, you can't be posh.
Try to be posh for 5 seconds. Now, Derek, our poshy Derek, he's meeting some adoring fans this morning. Who have you got with you, Derek?
Yeah, good morning, guys. I kind of feel like a poor man's David Attenborough out here this morning because we're live in the Phoenix Park at the moment. We're trying to track down a herd of deer. It is rutting season at the moment. Terry, we found them. It's taken a while.
Yeah, just beside the old town wood there, yeah.
Rutting season full swing at the moment. It's a busy time here in the park.
There's bucks making a rutting call there now in the background. So it's always richly around this area, around by the old town wood.
All right, we'll have more on that later on this morning. Lots of bucks, lots of antlers, locking horns as well. That's all to come at 8:45, rutting season. Back to you guys in the studio.
I suppose we will explain what rutting season is, Derek, at 8:45.
What? He said they're going off doing the deed. Anyway.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
Thank you, Ger, and a very good morning. We're live here in the Phoenix Park in Dublin this Tuesday. We're trying to keep pace with a herd of deer here this morning because we're talking all things rutting season at 8:45. So that's all to come in the next half hour or so. Now, we're getting past 8 o'clock here together this morning. Let's take a look weather-wise at how it's shaping up. And I have to say, a pretty decent sunrise out there this morning, holding mainly dry, brisk, fresh and settled, although we are still seeing showers up around parts of the northwest through Donegal into eastern parts of Galway and right up to Shannon Estuary, not escaping either in those moderate westerly winds. Now across today, those winds will veer to the southwest into this afternoon. They will freshen up and they will be gusty for a time, especially around coastal regions. And out there today, it really is that mixture of sunshine and the odd scattered shower. That sunshine becoming a lot hazier in nature as the day goes on. Quite brisk out there as well. So stay wrapped up, stay nice and cosy out there this third of the month. Top values in and around 14 to 17 degrees. And into tonight then, we'll be dry and settled, clear skies. Then we're going to see that cloud thicken up nationwide with showers. Keep an eye to the northwest. They'll hit earlier on tonight into tomorrow morning with overnight lows again on the chilly side, back to around 6 to 11 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in the Phoenix Park in Dublin at the moment. We're back again live at 8:35.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
It's time now to take a look at this morning's paper, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline, Garda HQ prepared to order GRA members to do overtime. The GRA, who has voted to withdraw voluntary overtime, that starts today. Garda management are willing to make the overtime order if required and have assured the government the ongoing industrial dispute will not have any major impact on frontline policing.
A €12 rise in pensions now on the cards in Budget 2024. Social welfare is also due to increase by €12 per week, and a lump sum payment of the fuel allowance are all at the centre of the budget negotiations, and that's on the front of the Irish Independent.
The Examiner leads with warning over surge in strep A cases. Cases of potentially fatal invasive group A strep are 4.5 times higher than expected this year, with young children particularly affected, the Health Protection Surveillance Centre has said.
McEntee warned, take back control. Justice Minister Helen McEntee has been warned she has a week to avert a full-blown crisis in her department as criticism mounts from coalition allies, Gardaí and the legal fraternity. That's on the Daily Mail.
The Mirror goes with Irish boy aged 11 sexually assaulted on Holiday Island. It's claimed a man grabbed the outside of the boy's trousers as he played in a pool in Tenerife last month. This was all done in front of his family. The man has been charged.
The Sun leaves with Hutch widow. The feud is over. Yesterday, Daniel Kinahan's associate Michael Carroll was sentenced to 22 years over the attempted murder of John Hutch. His widow, Vera Hutch, has said that the feud is over.
The Star and the Herald also lead with that story this morning. Now, at 7:15, we were talking about something completely different, and this was the former Director of Digital Transformation and Innovation at the HSE, Professor Martin Curley. He has been quoted as saying that working in the HSE was like going to hell. Yeah, like living in hell is what he said. So we chatted to him this morning, and he was talking about the antiquated systems he feels that are in the HSE, and a lot of people have gotten in contact about that.
Chloe says, I'm a HSE doctor. We still use paper charts, papers, and fax machines. Seriously, fax machines. And none of our hospital IT systems communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's just... Who's still using a fax machine this day and age?
And a pager. A pager.
And a pager, yeah.
They use a pager.
Oh, sorry, a
pager.
Oh, yeah, pagers and fax machine. So the pagers, yeah.
A pager. I don't even think, like 4 Irish people had them in the first place. Emer says, I work in a pharmacy department at the HSC and our computer systems are so out of date, it is totally unfit for purpose. It doubles the work for us and there's no traceability, which leads to double dispensing and medicine wastage. It must cost the HSE millions in losses.
It's absolutely incredible. And Anna said, both my parents have been unwell over the last few years, so we've spent countless hours in A&E departments with them. To say it's traumatic is an understatement. There is no other way of being admitted to hospital if you need acute care, and it's frightening.
Unbelievable. 0896 111 111. We'd love to hear from you on that. We were also mentioning today that Airtel on the 12th of October is to end after 40 years. Alan doesn't know what Airtel is.
I sort of do, but I don't think I've ever used it and where to find it. So it's just on your telly?
There's a button on your telly and you can go to Airtel.
But on your remote control?
On your remote control, yeah, for Airtel. And Joe says, I can't believe Airtel is gone. End of an era. I remember waiting for the pages to roll around to my local cinema listings. Those were the days. Because if you missed your local area, because it went alphabetically around Ireland for the cinemas, and if I missed the Omniplex in Limerick, you'd have to wait another 10 minutes until it came back around to Limerick.
But lots of people were on flights and checking flights and doing the flights and everything. And
your TV
sports
listings.
Results.
0896 111 111. You've got a few days to enjoy Airtel.
Now, coming up, we've been looking forward to this all morning. She is a superstar. Miriam Margolyes lifts the lid on her upcoming memoir.
Talk to you shortly.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, I've been fangirling about our next guest since I heard she was coming on our show. Whether she's on the West End stage, the Hogwarts Greenhouse, or Graham Norton's sofa, for over 60 years, our next guest has entertained audiences around the world.
And with so many stories to tell, she couldn't just fit them into one book. She's got a brand new memoir, the second one. Please welcome the unapologetically fabulous Miriam Margolyes. Good morning, Miriam. How are you?
Hello, darlings. Hello, Ireland. I'm so thrilled to be talking to you.
It's so lovely to have you. And I have been, since I was reading this book, and I got it last week, I've been quite obsessed with the exclamation mark on the "Oh, Miriam," as to whether it's "Oh, Miriam" or "Oh, Miriam." What is it, Miriam? Are you shocking people? Are you disappointing people? Which is it?
Well, I think it's kind of a mixture of all of them. And by the way, that brilliant cover design, which is enticing people to buy it, was designed by someone called Sarah Aratoon. And I always like to give her a mention, because my success depends on a lot of other people's, and certainly hers is due a mention. So the exclamation mark, it looks a bit like, well, I'm not going to say what it looks like, but the actual remark...
We're off!
I know it's watershed, 9 in the morning. Nobody says naughty things before 9 o'clock, or does naughty things before 9 o'clock. Maybe. But that is just how people refer to me. Oh, Miriam. Different tones of disgust, appreciation, etc.
Well, it's all appreciation from us here this morning, Miriam. And I mean, so most people, this is your second one, most people would have fit their life story into one, but not you. You had to do a second one.
Well, I didn't have to, but they offered me a lot of money. And, when you're my age, I'm 82, and I'm just grateful anybody wants to pay me anything, usually to shut up. But in fact, I'm speaking, so and I'm having fun because I'm meeting people who are buying the book. I'm going around the country, 22 cities, and I'm coming to Dublin on the 30th of October
You
to
certainly
the
are.
Board Gosh, which is apparently the gas board, and I'm known for being a bit gassy, so I think that's quite appropriate.
Well, do you know what?
The perfect collaboration.
The perfect collaboration.
Amazing. Place could
Yes. I've seen you doing many a chat show where you've released wind.
Well, I'm not going to this morning.
Thank you very much.
You know, don't get your hopes up. And I think you asked me to eat an onion on camera. Oh, I'm not doing that at 8 o'clock in the morning. What's the matter with you? I mean, I'm not an idiot. That would finish me off for the day. I like onion with cheese. You know, I don't eat it on its own, but I do eat a raw onion, and I think it's very good for me.
You don't eat an onion by itself? Here, try that.
Miriam, look at this.
Is it worth it?
We're at the end of the interview. Oh, Miriam, you're going for it.
I am not going for it.
Miriam is known for eating onions, so we wanted to pay homage this morning.
We will do it.
Well, it's very sweet of you to think of it, but I do eat normal things as well, as you see, because I'm so fat, which I hate. But, you know, I've got a big belly and big breasts. Are you allowed to say breasts in the morning?
Of course you are. Of course you are.
You're fine.
Okay.
You're absolutely fine. This is quite pungent. I don't know how you'd be doing this all the time. Miriam, in this book, there are so many fascinating aspects. Your hatred of the Tories comes out from almost every single page. One thing that you say that you've noticed in your lifetime is that people have become more and more dishonest in public life. And that's something I kind of wonder, is that we're noticing it more? You think that there has been a change in standards in life?
Oh, unquestionably. If somebody had been found out lying, for example, as Profumo did in the 60s, when I was at university, we were reading all about his escapades with Christine Keeler. God rest all their souls, because they're all gone now. But at that time, when he lied to Parliament about his relationship, he had to resign. Well, Boris Johnson is still raking in the millions, going around talking to people, thinking about a return to politics. I do think things have got pretty slack, frankly.
No.
No, but it's just so interesting because you're not afraid to share your opinions on such a wide range. So you talk in your memoir about the Tories, but then you have a whole chapter dedicated to bums. You know, do we need to be? Do people have to be allowed to be multifaceted? What's your fascination with the Tories and bums, Miriam?
And bums? Did you say B-U-M-S?
Yes, bums.
Are you allowed to say that in the morning? Gosh. Well, board gosh, in fact. Well, yes, I think people should be able to talk about anything honestly, as long as they tell the truth. But when you're in politics, you have an absolute responsibility to tell the truth. Because, look, we're in Brexit now. All I want is an Irish passport. And I've said publicly what I would do to get one. That perhaps was tongue-in-cheek, if one is allowed to say the word tongue. But I just feel we've got to be kind, we've got to be honest, we've got to be open and multifaceted. I don't want to limit people, but I do want to limit lies. That I would like to limit.
Miriam, you said in your book as well, when you're talking about bottoms, you're also talking about friendship, and friends are a core for you, and you've had some great friends for many, many years. But you're like most of us might have maybe 30, 40 contacts in a phone. You have 11,739. How in God's name have you still got all those contacts in a contact book?
Well, some of them are plumbers and people who make clothes, you know. They're not all close friends. I would never say that. But we all know how important friendship is. It's, I think, one of the keys to life. And women are particularly good at friendships. I think men are a bit nervous about making friends. So I always remember Daddy, my darling Daddy, saying, friends are people who drag you down. Well, I don't find that. Friends are people who keep me whole. And one of the lovely things about touring is that I'm meeting all my old friends. And when I did my show in Oxford recently, where I was born and brought up, I saw a lot of my old school friends in the audience, and they came round after. And it was so lovely to see them. And I like staying friends with people. I keep them in my life. That's why I'm fat. You know, I like to hold on to things.
So related to all of these things. With all of these friends, in the book you talk that you have offended many people in your life, but that one way that you like to get to know someone, the first thing you like to ask them about is sex, because you think that it's a great icebreaker. Is that something that you still do?
I'm sorry to say, I do still do that. I don't have sex anymore. I just talk about it. And I'm fascinated by it because it's something I believe we all share. We're all interested in it. And we all giggle about it a bit, I suppose. But it's a human thing. It connects people. And I've enjoyed all my sexual activities. And I do perhaps miss it a bit. But not a lot, because then I can do other things, you see. Because it was on my mind so much. I didn't do very much when I was younger. I just thought about it and did it.
Sounds like a good life, to be fair.
You've had such a wonderful life and worked constantly of your life. But like, as you're saying, you get to a stage where you think maybe retiring, but you're working more than ever. But I think a lot of people know you from your appearances with the one and only, the great Irishman, Graham Norton, on The Graham Norton Show. And it opened up a whole new audience of people who just went, this woman is absolutely fantastic. Do you love going on the show?
Actually, I do. I love Graham. And I think there's something about his Irish nature that is life-enhancing. I have a friend, Sandra O'Brien, I call her Biddy. She calls me Biddy, I call her Biddy. And she's a dear friend, and I met on Wicked, and she does my hair and makeup still. By the way, I'm not haired or made up today. I come to you in my nightie, fresh from the shower. I'm clean and fragrant, and loving the Irish. No, the thing about Graham is he loves people.
Yeah.
He's interested, so he listens, and he's quick as lightning. And he's made a big difference to my life. So I thank him with all my heart. And I believe I've been asked to go on his show quite soon. So I'm thrilled to bits. When you have something that you're publicizing, you don't get paid, and that's fair enough. When you're just on his show just to entertain, you do get paid. So he's doubly delightful, I think.
I'm showing up the book to make sure that Miriam knows she's not getting paid when she's on with us today, unfortunately. And we're looking at a picture right there of you and your Vogue cover that you did earlier on this year. Miriam,
wasn't that a surprise? My goodness. And then Tim Walker, this wonderful photographer, he said, would I do a nude shot? I said, as long as my Fanny, am I allowed to say Fanny? It's the name of a girl, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, I didn't want that on the television or on the book. So I got covered with buns from a well-known bakery. Can I say the name of the bakery?
Yes, you can.
Anyway, I don't eat the buns, but I use them to cover my area.
You do.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you cover it beautifully. And as you said, Miriam, you are on tour and you are coming to the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. It's sold out, so people can't even buy tickets. You're in that demand. People are loving you so much. But I think me and Miriam, could we sneak in and just stand at the back?
It's unbelievable.
I always think there's room. You know, I just think sold out is kind of, I don't believe it. If you want to come and see me, you'll get there. And if you can remind me, I'll make sure that somebody gets you in. But you've got to be careful because, you know, when my friend on this morning show didn't queue to watch the Queen's lying in, they got into trouble.
They did.
So you've got to be careful how you use your privilege. However, I'll always
we will buy a ticket. If there's any released, we will buy a ticket. Miriam Margolyes, it's been a joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
Oh, here, Miriam, look, I'm going to try an onion. Here we
you're
go.
Amazing.
Oh, bless you.
The book is called Oh, Miriam. It's your second memoir, and it is utterly enjoyable. Miriam, thank you for joining us this morning.
Bless you. I love you. Thank you, Alan.
So
thank you, both of you. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God.
Just spit that out on national television.
Oh, my God.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
Thank you, Ger. We're live here in the Phoenix Park in Dublin, right across the morning. We're talking all things rutting season with the herd of deer here in the park. We're catching up with Park Ranger Terry Moore at 8:45, so hang with us for that. Now, quick look at weather. A beautiful start here in the capital. Elsewhere, mainly dry, sunny and settled, with the exception really through the northwest. Some heavier showers there at the moment in that westerly airflow. Across the day, winds veering to the southwest. They will be fresh and locally gusty for a time, especially coastal regions. Elsewhere, it is that mixture of sunshine turning hazier at times with some isolated showers, 13 to 17 at best. And into tonight, it'll kick off dry and clear with once again some hit and miss light showers. Elsewhere, that cloud will thicken up as the night goes on into tomorrow morning, with showers then expected through the northwest as we edge our way into your Wednesday, with overnight lows on the chillier, on the fresher side, back to 7 to 12 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up for now. We're talking all things rutting season, 8:45.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
Perfect coffee every time. Tassimo sponsors cookery on Ireland AM.
Now, is it still a thing?
We feel like chicken tonight, like chicken tonight.
Is that still a thing? Is it?
Edward Hayden is the perfect recipe. We're having a supper tonight, are we?
I'm just thinking it's a morning for you, isn't it? Eating onions and kind of flapping on the telly.
I haven't gotten any chewing gum yet, so I'm staying over
Yeah.
here. It's not great. Hi, Edward.
Raw onions, lovely,
sultry
like
voice.
garlic and onions.
Yeah, we're going to make a nice supper option today. So I'm using chicken thighs, which are a really nice kind of, inexpensive, readily available product.
Can I ask you, Edward, does anyone ever do supper anymore?
Of course, everybody does supper. If I'm having friends around on a Friday night, the text will say, "Hi folks, do you want to come around for wine and supper Friday night?" I think it's lovely.
It's clear that Alan Hughes has never been around never been invited to wine and supper.
Never. But wine and supper I might go for. Oh, yeah. Did you say wine and supper?
Wine and supper, yeah.
I'd be there.
You wouldn't have read supper.
Right. Supperers, let us know. 089
Yeah, I think supper is lovely. It's a thing in the country, isn't it?
Let's start.
Is it?
Supper. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Now, supper is, you're about to behold supper. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lovely marinade. So I've got some soy sauce. What I'm doing here today is I've got the commonality of ingredients. I'm going to use the ingredients twice. Okay, I've got the soy sauce. Now, I've made my own sweet chilli sauce, but there's a lot of really good ones that you can buy. But mine is even better. But you can get a really good one.
Why don't you sell it in supermarkets?
Oh, when would I get the time to make it? I'm hard-pressed to make one jar of it.
Get somebody else to make it.
Alan, we have to have a bit of integrity. I have to keep my reputation.
Tonight for him.
Now, in that, I'm going to put a bit of garlic. So I'm going to be lazy here and use the garlic press. So put in a bit of garlic. Theirs has gone in as well. Now, also what I've got, and this is unusual, but it works really nicely.
Flakes.
No, it's not chili flakes. Comes in the same jar. Star anise, which is that lovely aniseed. It's almost like, if you had Pernod or a bag of licorice or something like that. So again, you can just see the lovely shape of it there. It is kind of as it is.
That just goes in like that.
I'm just going to pop it in like that. So it's an aromatic. So aromatics always go in and they're just left to infuse. So that's basically the core elements for your marinade. So I've got chicken thighs here. You could use chicken breast, but I just want to tell people one of probably the most boring things that they might have on their weekly menu are pork chops. This is fabulous marinade for pork chops,
Good.
So give these literally just a rub around, okay? So pop them all in. You can see I've popped on the glove here just to give these a mix. And this is a bit like doing the fake tan. You'll always see the bit you've missed. Muireann, if you were doing the...
Muireann be an expert at this.
Listen, wouldn't you know I had 3 sisters, you know?
It's my text from my friends going, for God's sake, will you just get a glove and wipe it in, love?
Yeah, give it a rub. Now, again, if you were at home, you'd leave that to marinate for a little bit of time.
What's little bit?
Again, half an hour upwards is sufficient. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop those out onto the tray. I have put a bit of baking parchment on the tray, and I'm just going to pop out the rest of that marinade there and put that on. And that is going to go into the oven. So we'll put those in 180, 350 gas mark 4. And you'd want to give those about 35 or 40 minutes in there. So I've got one there, which we'll take out in just a second. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're just going to have a little look at the accompaniments to go with that. So what I've got is I'm going to do a lovely noodle stir fry. So I'm just going to start off here by adding in some oil to my pan or to my wok. And I've just got a selection of vegetables, OK? So use whatever selection you have. So I've just got, first and foremostly, a little bit of garlic. So again, we'll serve a little bit of garlic in there. Between onions and garlics, now you're going to be scalded this morning.
Lovely.
Now, so pop that in there. I've also got a little bit of red chilli. I've taken the seeds out of it, but you could leave them in if you wanted a little bit hotter. And then I've just got a selection of vegetables. So if you can see there, what I've got is I've got my onions, I've got some mushrooms, and I've got some mixed peppers. But be inventive there around the house. Use whatever it is that you'd like. So again, you might have courgettes, you might have some carrots. I had carrots last night, and I was really tempted to put a few in there. And then I said, oh no, people say he hasn't got that on the recipe. But use it. Celery, of course, is really good in a stir-fry as well. Yeah. Celery is great, and I think we always just think celery as in 2 sticks in a pot of soup or in a stew. But, I mean, think of it in a lovely white sauce. Think of it in a lovely stir-fry or under fish. If you're baking fish in the oven, think of it for that. It's really gorgeous. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a really nice stir-fry up, and I'm going to allow that to continue to do. In pure television fashion, I have one here which I've started. And what I've got here is I've just got some noodles. I've left a few here. What I've done is I've just cooked those a little bit earlier on this morning, and then I ran them under ice cold water until I was ready for them. Now, if you were at home, you could just put the noodles in the bowl, put boiling water on the top of them while you're doing your stir fry, and they'd be ready. So pop those in there just like that. Now, then, as I said to you earlier on, I love the commonality of ingredients. And some people say, oh, God, I'm after going out. You're after telling me to buy the jar of cumin. I need to get to the end of it. So I always say, if you stick with me, I'll get you to the end of all these things. Consequently, I do have a little bit of cumin here. But again, the ingredients that I had for my marinade are also going to be the ingredients for my dressing. So I'm going to just put a little bit of soy sauce on that. And also I'm going to dress these with a little bit of the sweet chilli as well. OK? So there we have it, just like so. Give that a nice little mix around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish that off. And again, don't cook that for too long at this stage, OK? So I've just got 2 little individual bowls here, just so we see the mixture of the 2. So pop that up there. I'm just going to give you a small little bit. And you know, of course, that I love that shared dining. The platter. So I'm just going to take out my lovely chicken. So my chicken has been in the oven, and you'll see that it will be sitting in that lovely marinade and the kind of the residual cooking juices. About half an hour, maybe 35 minutes, OK? And if I can just give you up a little bit of one each there. And hold on, I just have a tiny little few sesame seeds that I just put over the top of that.
It's very sort of Chinese-y, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a nice kind of a little spicy option. And I think, you know, I think I told you before, I always feel there's a bit of Shirley Valentine in us all when it comes to food. So I think we're always looking for something a little bit different, just to jazz it up. And that's just a really, really nice option. You can see it there on the platter with the lovely noodles. You can see I've taken a little bit of my broth that I'm serving, that I've cooked that in, and poured that on the top.
Absolutely.
So it'll be really nice and tasty.
And of course, the recipe is online. Edward, Hayden, thank you so much.
Delicious. You're very welcome. Welcome to supper.
Looking forward to it. We'll be back with you on Ireland AM very shortly.
Perfect coffee every time. Tassimo sponsors cookery on Ireland AM.
Hello, welcome back to Ireland AM. And just to let you know that there was like a swarm of flies came into the kitchen when Edward finished that.
Hayden.
The chicken is being hoovered up. Well worth doing for your dinner at some stage this week. So unbelievably delicious. So good.
Really has.
Now, some of the messages that you have been sending in today. We were chatting earlier on with Andrea Gilligan from News Talk about Garda rosters and the fact that they're withdrawing voluntary overtime as of today. They're going to do it every Tuesday in October. So it's starting today. This is something we've been talking about for months, what's going on with the Gardaí. And let's remember, there has been issues with retention of Gardaí, the amount of Gardaí that are going into Templemore and recruiting and keeping them on.
And this is because they want to change the roster, because a different roster was brought in during COVID or just before COVID and all over COVID, and they're going back to a new roster. And the Gardaí don't want to do that. And Kieran says, where is the leadership in our government when over 10,000 Gardaí have no confidence in their boss? And they've actually said they don't have confidence in Drew Harris. If there was any other country, he would be gone.
So it's reverting to the roster pre-COVID. That's what they want to do. Annette says, why can't the Gardaí have a two-tier system? All new Gardaí and anyone who chooses to do the new rota can do it. And then the others can say it is. They did it with the wages of teachers because because it's a roster. Everyone has to work the same roster to cover the same things. So I don't think that that would be a viable option. Everyone has to work the same roster. Like we'd have to work the same roster inside here. You know what I mean? 0896 111 111. Another message in here. We were talking about Airtel. It is coming to an end after 40 years on October the 12th. Alan is only discovering about it today.
No,
so he's only got a few
sort of
days.
knew what it was. I didn't quite know that it was so popular and that, like, you got all your information. And Brendan says, Alan's not the only one. I don't know what Airtel is either.
Oh, my God. And Christy, I met my now husband using the Airtel dating ads. It had everything.
Everything.
0896 111 111 to get in contact. There's lots more Ireland AM on the way. Hello, welcome back to Ireland AM. This hour has birds, bats and bullocks.
I'm a bird now.
He's a bird.
Wild thing. Eanna Ni Lamhna is here to tell us about her latest book and why you won't see bats at Halloween. Is that what you're talking about?
That's it.
That's it.
I'm a bit bats. Musician Aoife Scott, she joins us to talk about all things trad and touring.
And Catherine Carton has floral trends for spring-summer 2024 in our garden. Catherine, what have you got for us today?
Good morning. So spring gardens are planted now. So if you want to have loads of tulips and daffodils come springtime, we have to put the work in now. So I have loads of bulbs to share with you, and we're going to chat a little bit about lasagna planting as well.
Lasagna planting.
Lasagna planting. Love
Looking
it.
forward to it,
We're
Catherine.
talking about spring of next year. Isn't that great?
Isn't it?
That's
We need
great.
it a little bit today. Derek is going to be meeting the Deer of Dublin City. We're going to be catching up with him very shortly. Hello,
Thank you
welcome
very much.
back. Thank you so much. We're hoping to chat to Derek in just a little while, but we have lots of your messages to get through. Earlier on today, we were talking about the HSE digitisation,
Yes.
the
lack of
digitisation and what's going on with the HSE. They're still using paper, pens, pagers, fax machines.
Yeah.
So loads of messages in here.
Yeah, Mary said, my husband was brought to a hospital in Nantes on Monday and was seen straight away and was released that evening. I really can't understand the system here. We would definitely have been on a trolley for hours and possibly even days. And that is the reality of going into an A&E department here in Ireland at the moment, unfortunately.
Now, I think someone I know had to go in for a scan recently, just on their foot. They thought they'd broken their ankle. In and out in an hour.
Private?
No, not private. No, in St. John's in Limerick. In and out, in an hour, done. They had an appointment, went in, got it done, they were out. And I was just like, that is fantastic. It was
that
just,
is fantastic.
It was really good.
But they're the
just wanted
well,
to
we
say
should
that.
be highlighting the good stories then as well, because
If
we're
there
hearing
are
so
any
many
good stories. Like Kate, having been a patient for just under 30 years with countless hospital appointments, I still have to inform every doctor who sees me of my medical history and my list of medications. The appointments letter has a section on the back where you can fill this out, but doctors never have it, and that's why we need digitisation, is what is being said. 0896 111 111. That's how you get in.
How long are you doing the show now?
So I don't know my own number half the time. Now, our lovely Derek, he has been having a delightful morning in the Phoenix Park in Dublin.
Yeah, he's having a bit of a stag party this morning. Over to you, Derek.
A stag party is right, guys. We've had a very busy morning. We're trying to track down a herd of deer here. They're on the move right across the park, over 1,700 acres. Is that right, Terry?
That's correct, yeah, 1,752 acres, yeah.
One of the biggest wall parks in Europe, I believe.
That's right, yeah, it's to keep people like you over.
Yeah. Now, rutting season is in full swing at the moment. You're a ranger here in the park. It's quite a busy time of year.
Yeah, it's really busy. It's the ritual every year around this time, you know, October. It's when the males battle and fight each other for dominancy over each other to mate with a female.
Now, the herd itself is quite a big herd. It's over 600 strong.
At the moment, yeah, it's just over 600. So, yeah, it's over 600 males and females and young deer. There was 100 fawns born there last June. So, yeah, we keep it around 600.
Now, we should have some shots here on air. Obviously, the stags stay in a different pack. So, most people wouldn't know that actually the does and the stags stay separated for most of the year.
Yeah, it's a great life. You have the males on the east side and you have the females on the west side. And they only come together at the time of the rut, the mating season.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the stags themselves because this is the time that they do lock antlers, and it is, I suppose, for visitors coming into the park, it can be quite an unsettling time here.
It can be for the deer if the public get too close to them, because it happens every year and they just need to be left alone in their natural habitat and leave them do their business. But
like the stags are quite big. You could be talking 80 to 100 kg.
Yeah. The buck's a big buck, you know, mature buck could be between 90 and 100 kilos. So he'll come into the rut in great condition. But after about 4 or 5 weeks, he loses about a quarter of his body weight because all he's doing is concentrating on mating and fighting.
Now, you were talking about the secretion of wax. Tell us about that.
Yeah, they have a couple of glands. They have a gland under the eye and on the hock and on the groin as well. So they have these glands and they secrete this waxy substance and it stains on the face and around the groin area. So you'll see them, they look fairly rugged and ferocious and it gives this musky smell as well. They'll scrape holes in the ground and they'll urinate in the
And why did they do that, Terry?
Scent.
Scent.
To give them this
to mark the territory, obviously,
give this musky smell like aftershave, and they roll around their own urine, and seem enough, it seems to work for them. Yeah.
Now, how long would the rutting season last then?
You're talking, it starts to come into play around the end of September, and it'll peak in around the 3rd week of October, and come the start of November, that's it, it'll be finished.
Okay, so we're kind of just about getting into the very start of it, and we do have shots in there. You can see like the stags are out, and they're making their voices heard, aren't they?
You can hear them belching and groaning. They can drop their atoms after about 6 centimetres, enables them to make this belching, groaning, repetitive sound. So it's a lot of wear and tear in the body. Like, you know, it's hard going for it, but they feel full of testosterone. So they're just really hyper and really mad to fight with each other.
The antlers themselves, what are they actually made out of?
They're made out of bone. So yeah, this
like
is
in your nail, I suppose. Would it be keratin?
Yeah, made of bone. But as they're grown, they're made up of. It's really soft. It's called velvet, made up of tiny hairs, and you can see the lines there as they were grown. So it starts off as nothing.
Okay.
They fall off in April, and come the end of August, from 0 to this in a space of 18, 19 weeks, which is really impressive. It grows really quick.
The velvet then on the antlers, they scrape that off the bark then, do they?
Yeah, it just strips off. It's like dead skin. The antler becomes hard and then it just falls off the hair, and then the antler becomes hard, and then that's normally the end of August. Brings us then perfectly into September, into coming up to the mating season where they can clash antlers and get into battles and scrapes each other.
And like they would obviously potentially get injured off this then, would they?
Well, yeah, they would, bucks have lost eyes, you know, if they've been punctured in the lungs, you know, it's quite dangerous for them. It's also dangerous. People need to keep their distance, keep clear.
Keep back, yeah. At the end of rutting season then, the antlers shed. What do you do with the antlers that you find then around the park?
They shed in April.
Oh, in April, sorry, yeah. What do you do with the antlers then you find around the park?
We do our best to try and collect as many as we can, because there's a lot of schools who will be looking for nature tables. They look for them as a piece on the nature table. Then there's artists who look for it to make jewellery out of the antler as well. So they're well sought after.
There's how many doe here in the park, by the way?
Approximately 200.
200, okay.
Yeah.
So they'll mate in around now. When are you expecting fawns to be born?
It's 36 weeks gestation period, so June. It's always June when the weather's good, the nettles are high, the thorns are there. It's just for plenty of cover for the young fawns when they're born.
Okay, yeah, so you've a busy time ahead over the next couple of weeks.
That now, yeah.
Absolutely. So rutting season in full swing. If people are coming down to the park, obviously take a little bit of extra care if you're coming down and be mindful that obviously it is happening at the moment.
50 metres, yeah. Keep
50 metres back. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Hopefully we're going to lock horns or lock antlers a little bit later on this morning. We're having a little bit of a rut ourselves. Back to you in studio.
Having a little rut himself.
Oh, you're live
on television. Sure, that's always.
No.
Derek,
Eanna
you
Ni Lamhna
do
be
you,
coming
my
in
love.
telling us all about this now.
She'll be giving out about his form in a second now.
Oh,
Won't she? She'll be looking forward to that. All the deer there going, Derek, can you leave us have our privacy, love?
Exactly.
We're just having a bit of fun.
Get those cameras away
just
from
having
us.
a bit of fun. Thank you, Derek, as always, informative and hugely entertaining. Now, keeping the wildlife theme going, of course, as we just mentioned, Ireland's answer to Dr. Doolittle. Eanna Ni Lamhna will be stopping by.
Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Welcome back to Ireland AM. Our next guest has been educating the nation on our natural habitat for over 30 years, and her latest book is filled with myth-busting and mind-blowing wildlife facts.
And here to discuss all creatures great and small is nature expert and author Eanna Ni Lamhna. Look at, I'm holding it up, Eanna. Is that all right for you?
Eanna's like, when can I talk about my book?
When can I talk about the book? Eanna, people know, you were saying 30 years there, and people know you from the TV and radio, and I know you for years. But I'd never actually asked you how you got into all this.
Oh, I was in the book.
What's the book?
Oh, the book. It was way back in the end of the 1980s when Forest Furbeha was abolished, and Derek, a young chap called Derek Mooney, was getting going on programmes.
What was abolished?
Where I used to work, Forest Furbeha.
Oh, Forest Furbeha.
Yeah, that was abolished. I was abolished, and I was given a pension and an old age pension and a children's allowance at the same time.
Okay.
But we won't go there. Anyway, Derek was the only young scutcher anyway, and he was getting going on programmes, and he had all these male voices because that's what all it was. But though he wanted a woman's voice, so he looked up the book.
What's the book, though?
And I said to him, what's the book? He said, oh, the book of women who can do things. And there was actually in RTE at the time.
And it was called The Book of Women Who Can Do Things.
It wasn't called that. It was just...
No, but like, they'd be entertaining or informative on a show. So there was a
book,
list.
There were people like Maeve Binchy, people like Nell McCaffrey, the MP themselves. There were women in the book who could be relied upon to talk and would know something. There was no book of men, because obviously men knew everything. They didn't need to be in the book. But certainly, and I was in the book to talk about spiders, and I did, and I was bloody marvellous, and I've been at it ever since.
If you say so yourself.
You're only as good as your last gig. And my last gig has been going on for a long time. And I have the book at home. Derek gave it to me in the end. If I had known you were so interested, I'd have brought it in.
I want to see the book.
No, we were fascinated when we heard this. Like, they had a book.
They had a book,
with people, women's names.
Women's names who could do
they'd be
things,
good at talking.
So there's a bit on wildlife, and who might talk about that? And there I was, and Derek rang me up. Can you talk about spiders? Yes, I can. Come in. And sure, the rest is history. And there I wrote a book about it.
And was there thousands of people in the book, or was there like 100?
Oh, God, no, there weren't that many. But the book wasn't that thick. It wasn't Encyclopedia Britannica or anything like that.
But it was like, here's a few women. Please, if you need to token woman.
Talk about sport.
Well, you were in good company. It was Nell McCaffrey, Maeve Binchy and all them. I'm telling you.
I'm the nerve of them. The nerve of people to put people like them and say they might talk, they might be good.
Exactly.
If Nell McCaffrey knew, she'd blow a gasket.
Please blow a gasket, Nell. Come on the show tomorrow. We want to talk to you. Let's talk, because you have had a varied career. I have enjoyed every single time I've gotten to speak to you and spend time in your company. And you've written gorgeous books. And now you've got a brand new book.
Here it is.
This is for children, Wonders of the Wild.
Well, children and the people who will read it out to them like their parents. And this is a book about all the things that are really interesting about the wildlife that I am interested in. So it's not a complete book of all the wildlife in Ireland or anything like it. It's a selection of things. And every page you read, you're going to say, God, I never knew that. Did you know that spiders have all their legs on their heads? Yeah.
No,
well,
I never knew that.
Well, if you look at it now, you'll
He
say
didn't know about Airtel.
Yes, well, I know. But I mean, there you go. And did you know that we're talking about Halloween coming up at the end of the month, and there's bats and spiders and scary things? There won't be a bat to be seen at Halloween.
Why?
Because they're all hibernating.
Oh, they've already started.
No, they haven't hibernated yet. If they're around, because the weather is a bit warmer than it might be. Although it's cold today, it'll be warmer the weekend. Bats feed on insects, and if there's no insects, well, then there's nothing for them to eat.
They start hibernating.
And then they hibernate for the winter until. So by Halloween, they're all in their beds asleep and won't be around again until the following.
Do we have this misconception about bats? Do you like bats? Because when you think of bats, it's always about horror movies and they're going to bite you and they're going to do things to you.
They have a bad HR, they have a bad public relations person. That's what's wrong with them. And it all started way back in the 1100s when they had the doors on the cathedral in Pisa. There's a Leaning Tower, but there's a cathedral and lovely doors. And on the right-hand door, there's the angels bringing the souls up to heaven with wings like swans. And on the other side, there's the devil shoveling them all down to hell. And they have wings like that, scaly wings. So, and they come out at night and they fly around, they don't crash into things. Must be something to do with the devil. And I mean, it's rubbish, it's absolute nonsense. But, you know, in my book, I'm telling you how wonderful they all are and how they manage to navigate without crashing into things. And it's great.
It's a sonar thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they send out sounds and the sound waves bounce off things and come back at a slower speed and they hear their world in sound, which is amazing. Yeah. So how would they fly in your hair unless your head is completely empty and the sound waves go right through and you have the brain inside in your head? I mean, the thing is absolutely nonsense. I mean, it always annoyed me that, you know, you saw things and you tried to find out. I mean, frogs hibernate, for example. Now, frogs hibernate at the bottom of ponds. Why don't they drown?
Why don't they drown?
Well, they can never, but you look that up and you never find out why they didn't drown. Well, I'm going to tell you now why they don't drown. Because they can breathe through their lungs because they're up in the air, breathing, hopping up and down. But if you breathe through your lungs underwater, you'll drown. Yeah. So they don't. They breathe through their skin. That's why they have this cold, clammy skin. Yes. And they breathe through. Oh, yes, I know now. But do people never think about why is this, why is it like so?
But that's a fascinating thing that they do because they take the oxygen out of the water. So they're doing this whole thing.
Yes, they're doing that.
What's this about rabbits and defecating?
Oh, doing their poos, yeah. This is the wonderful talk for this hour of the morning. But
why not?
If you eat grass,
eating your
you'll
breakfast.
die. Remember, we all died during the famine eating grass because we couldn't digest it.
Yeah.
Cows eat grass and they have 4 stomachs down to one. Then they have to lie down and chew the cud and down into another. Takes forever. And the bacteria break it down and we have all that carry on with methane. But rabbits eat it as well, and rabbits don't have 4 stomachs, and rabbits don't die. And what they do is they eat the grass and eat down through all the way, down through all their things, and when it gets down to the other end and they feel the call of nature, the grass is only half digested. So the rabbit eats its own poo and has a second go going round through, and then the second time it has digested all the stuff out of it, and it comes up and does a little tiny dried out sort of a dropping at the top of the bowl.
There's no nutrients left in it.
Yeah, they got it all, but it has to go through twice. Yeah, that's very sensible. But we all think, imagine eating your own, but it's your own poo you eat. Yeah. Not eating anybody else's poo.
I know. On a more serious note, Eanna, I mean, look, when we look back at this year now and climate change, and we've had the warmest temperatures ever recorded. We see temperatures, the wettest then as well.
Yeah.
We've had these extremes. Are you worried about where we're going?
Well, that's where we are going. I mean, it's getting worse and worse every year. I mean, you've been reading the weather for the last, I don't know how long. I mean, you must know what the way the weather changes and how it is. But we have to have hope. I think we say, yes, it's all terrible, let's all die down and die. Or, yes, it's changing and we have still got the power to do it. And we have to be aware, we have to know the things we can do will help. I mean, we put all this carbon dioxide up into the atmosphere and that's keeping in the heat. How do you get the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere? You plant trees. And so planting trees is the only way to get it out. A big fat tree full of timber is carbon that was in the atmosphere. Trees are made from the air. They're made from the carbon that was in the air. So we have half the world covered in forests. We're planting new forests every day of the week in the tropical rainforests, aren't we? No, we're not.
No, we're not.
But I mean, if enough people say this is the only way, well, then we should plant more trees in Ireland. And this is why actually this brings me
National
nicely.
Tree Week.
National Tree Day. No, it's Tree Day. It's Spar National Tree Day on Thursday. This is the day when school children go out and about and learn about trees and go out for walks in the woodlands. And
you're asking people to plant a tree.
Well, no, they go. This is all for school. So the schools go online to treeday.ie. We send them out a hazel tree because it's hazel this year, nuts about nature, and they learn about biodiversity. They learn about planting the tree if they want to get a tree for their school, and they're out and about learning the importance of trees. And if enough people know about the importance of trees, we'll plant more. We've 11% of the country planted with trees. That's all. We're the worst in Europe.
Yeah.
Ourselves in Malta, 11%. Even Britain has 12%. You know, the European average is 38 or 39%.
Wow.
Because we need to have more emphasis on this and getting people more aware and getting getting trees planted. So this is the thing. So you can be depressed. You can say, oh, it's all terrible. What will we do? Or you can say, listen, we can still do something. We need to know. If you can't say you don't know, if you know something and you feel you can do something, you feel empowered. If you go out and plant a tree, you feel, well, I did something. You know, if you go on your bicycle instead of driving your car, you feel, well, I did something.
Yeah.
But I mean, people think, oh, I recycled the plastic bottle, am I great? But the thing is, what did you buy the plastic bottle for? Why are you buying stuff? I mean, even if you recycle it, you're still using up the Earth's materials. I mean, plastic is made from oil, and oil is fossil fuel. So, you know, don't be buying the plastic bottle and then thinking you're doing the devil and all recycling it. Don't be buying it at all. Bring your keep cup. You know, what are you doing wanting all this water in a bottle? I mean, what's wrong with the tap? I mean, if there's nothing wrong with the water in the tap, the county council would be sued. You can drink the water out of any tap.
Talk to lots of people who are on boil water notices around the country now. They might say different to
No,
that.
but there is a boil water notice. No, I'm just saying, if there's no boil water notice, the water is safe. If there's something wrong with the water because the water quality is impaired because of the way people are using the land, don't get me going. The water doesn't get dirty by itself. It doesn't come out of the sky dirty. Someone makes it dirty. So, I mean, it's not an accident.
There is something going on. And we know
this is a light morning programme. I'm promoting my book. If you want me to be in full mode, join me at 10 o'clock at night. But Wonders of the Wild...
Do you know the way frogs can breathe underwater?
Yes.
And they don't drown? She can speak without breathing. It's almost like I don't know how she does it. She takes one big breath.
I know.
And then 10 minutes later,
I got lessons on how to do it. It's great.
It's through your eyes. Brand new book, which is utterly fascinating, I have to say. It's called Wonders of the Wild, and genuinely, it is something for adults and for young people.
It's got lovely pictures by Brian Fitzgerald. You know,
beautiful pictures as well. Eanna Ni Lamhna National Tree Day is on the 5th as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
I thought you were going to say national treasure. You are a national treasure.
Well, I'm not dead yet. You're a national treasure when you're dead.
Thank you, Eanna. After the break, we'll be chatting to folk musician Aoife Scott about storytelling and touring in America.
We'll see in a few minutes.
Welcome back. Now, hot on the heels of her US tour and straight onto the DJ decks. Oh yeah, I feel so cool. Our next guest is no stranger to the spotlight.
That's right. Irish folk singer, presenter, and now podcaster Aoife Scott is here. Good morning.
Hello.
On the decks.
On the decks. Thank you for joining us. And we were saying your US trip because you're literally just back.
I know.
And you were there for what, 7
weeks? Yeah. So
what was it like?
It's been amazing. Like this time was a bit longer. I did up to last year. I had a rule of a month would be my longest tour, but we pushed it a little bit longer because we got to see Montana, and that everybody was talking to me about the show Yellowstone. Do you ever see that? Yeah. And I haven't watched it, but I was going to the places that Yellowstone is made in. Yeah. And so I hadn't seen it, but I knew that Montana was going to be spectacular, and it really was unbelievable. Like,
so, because you were talking about this, you compared it to New Zealand, like because I think everyone who goes to America, normally Irish people go to certain places.
Boston, New York, whatever.
Yeah. And what was funny about going out there, because you're right in the middle of cowboy country. If you're, they're asking you where you're from. You know, when you're in Boston, Chicago, and all that, everybody's so used to Irish people. They're like, oh, you're Irish, you know. And so, Johnny down the road, whatever. And nearly Americans have somebody who was Irish, like, you know. Whereas in Montana, they're like, where are you from? It's like, oh my God. And I'm like, wow, I can get used to like feeling special out
here. And if you're gigging in places like that, then what's the reaction like?
It's amazing. Like, the reaction is like, because they haven't been immersed in Irish culture in the way that the cities of Boston, Chicago, and Kansas City, even Kansas City's in the middle of America, and that's got a huge Irish American like population.
Really?
And so then you go further west, and it's just not as much, and it's more it's just very vast, and it's so there's just masses of mountains in between towns. It's kind of like totally cowboy country. Yeah, it's spectacular.
And you're it's so amazing. I love the way you go over to America all the time, and you're not afraid, and it's so vast, and the tours you do are so huge. And seeing you on stage, you're such a storyteller. Like, you'll go for an hour to an Aoife Scott concert, and you'll be there for 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like, it's so much fun.
The waffles.
But you've taken that to the mic. You're doing radio now, and you've got a new podcast, Women of Folk. Is that what you're doing?
Women of Note.
Women of Note.
Yeah. So Tradfest Temple Bar.
Trad,
you know my show. I do a show in Temple Bar, Tradfest, every year. Tradfest Temple Bar, and I'm taking it to the podcast now. So I've interviewed Peggy Seeger, who was in my show a couple of years ago. Janice, who is like Grammy Award winner, like interviewing her. That was my first interview on the podcast, and I was like, oh my God. I actually got starstruck even though I wasn't looking at her, if that makes sense, because we were doing it over like the mic, but it wasn't like a video. And my heart just started thumping, and I was like, oh no, actually, no questions. My mind went blank, and I had questions on the paper, but she's so knowledgeable that I just had to kind of push her along, and then she just spoke about her amazing life as a woman in folk music, and a woman in the industry, essentially. And I'm just trying to talk to women about that and how they've been finding it over the years, because I'm kind of getting my head around being a woman in the industry and how it's different for me versus men in the music industry in total.
But what is the difference?
Well, okay, there's a couple of things that I've been realising is that there's a massive disparity of women getting played on the radio, particularly in Ireland.
Is there?
Yeah, massive, like. And so it's all, you listening to all the mainstream radio stations, it's all Hosier and, you know, Gavin James for Irish players.
Yes,
and then they have Americans coming in, and you'll hear maybe female Americans on the radio, but you'd never hear Irish voices. And so I'm coming from a point of view of folk music, so I know that I'm not going to be played on that kind of pop music station, but I thought about it, and if my nieces were growing up and they decided they wanted to be pop stars, you know, there has to be an opportunity for them to have a career in Ireland. Because I go to America, that's where I actually earn my money.
Yeah.
I play here, but I have to go away to be able to make money. And I want my nieces to be able to go, actually, I'd like to be able to sing, and I'd like people to be able to hear me. And it's a lot of the times the radio station saying, oh, it's because they don't want to be requested, but people don't know these women exist without them being heard on the radio.
If you're playing a good song, and it's a good song, no matter who's doing it.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing it or some other upcoming artist, and people are listening to
But
a
a lot
good
of
song,
it is
they want a
metrics
good
now.
song.
They're kind of going, this is metrics. It's an algorithm. Like that's what traditional media is trying to do.
Yeah.
What Spotify is sort of doing. And and Ruth Ann has been talking about that recently. She's like, you get success outside your own country. It's really, you know, gets you down.
It does. It's hard, you know, and it's hard then to come back and you're like, hey, everybody, I just did all this amazing stuff over here. But like, you know, and it's hard to even get a voice. And that's what's amazing about making the podcast and being on the radio and being able to speak about things like that.
What do you make of, because this is, I suppose, when I grew up, like my sisters, honestly, my sister had at one stage, you know, A Woman's Heart on and Mary Black and Francis Black on in the house. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
It was Dirty Dancing and that, the soundtracks. And this is what I grew up listening to. The other sister had Duran Duran and all that kind of stuff. But it was always there. It was something that I grew up as pop music.
Yeah.
Whereas genres have changed, and now we've got this very American sort of music that feels like it's taken over the world.
Yeah, I think it's hard to know, but I do think that we're really influenced by Over the Seas, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what's popular over there is popular over here. I think it comes around in cycles, that folk music can come back around again, and then hopefully women would be popular in that sense and be put on the radio again. But I think folk music is popular. It's just not put on mainstream radio because that's what the young people want to hear.
Yeah, it's always interesting. And chasing the young.
I mean, amazing. So what other amazing guests have you got on your podcast coming on?
Oh, yeah. So Peggy Seeger is going to be on it. So Peggy Seeger's 86.
Wow.
And she's still planning on touring into her 88th birthday. She's going on tour in 2025 and she's going to be 88. And she's just the most... She married Ewan McCall. She's coming from folk scene in the 60s and she was like a female solo artist in the 60s. She's so powerful. Janisine, who's coming to Tradfest in January, she's amazing. And then, I've got Claire Sands, Karen Casey, and I'm finishing it off with this amazing singer-songwriter, Ellen O'Mara, she's coming from, like, not gigging that much and seeing the industry from that side of things.
And that's a podcast, which is great because you get to do that control at yourself. You're also working in Radio 1.
Yeah, I've started to sub. I'm a sub.
You're a super sub.
Yeah.
Kind of going in where you're kind of going, okay, I can do what I want in my podcast, say what I want to do, whatever. And then you're kind of like, oh no, this is a big thing. How are you finding that?
I suppose when you're doing Late Date, which is a radio show, it's not a specialist music show. You're doing 3 hours, so you can play music. And then I'm doing the RT Concert Orchestra Presents, which is presenting folk music on October the 30th. That's a special show that I'm doing as well. So that I do have to be careful. I can't say things. Like, can't be completely myself.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. How are you finding the kind of going, oh, I have to watch myself?
I do have to watch myself because as well as being on the telly, as you know yourself, but like I find that I do curse a lot in my daytime life, and I have to be careful that I don't. And sometimes things can go wrong on the L desk when you play something that you're not supposed to play, and I'm learning all that. That's all new for me, and I press the wrong button, and then I literally curse. And I'm so lucky that the mic is muted, you know, because I will curse because I'm annoyed at myself.
How dare you?
And if people want to see you here, then of course you're starting your tour here.
I am, yeah.
Do you ever stop?
I know, I'm wrecked at the moment. I just had a 9-minute nap in the car there before I came in.
I love it.
I did, yeah, I'm doing the 19th of
9th
October. I'm
October.
starting in Ballycotton, and then I do Kilkee and County Clare on the 20th, and the 21st I'm in Dolan's. And then in November I'm in Donegal and in Sligo, and then Castlebar, and I'm in Derry and Belfast.
It's all up there. You can find it all online on Aoife Scott. You're all over the place. October 19th until December 15th.
Yes,
and
thanks.
your podcast, Talking Trad, Women of Note. A pleasure
Thanks
to
a million
have
for
you
having
in.
me.
Always going. And honestly, you get your money's worth at an Aoife Scott gig. Just get settled in
Yours
for the
good.
night. The stories that come out of her mouth are brilliant.
Get the babysitter for an extra hour.
Honestly, so worth it. Aoife Scott, pleasure.
Thanks
to
a
see
million.
you.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
so
me.
much.
Thanks so much.
We have to get her to do a hair tutorial. It's so good. Coming up next, we're making lasagna, but it's not cooking time. It's with soil and bulbs.
Stay tuned for that.
Welcome back. It can be a dull time of year with leaves falling. They haven't started falling yet, have they? And plants dying, but it is, have they?
Yeah.
It's the optimal time to get the garden prepared for springtime.
Yes, showing us how to be the perfect plant parent is green-fingered goddess Catherine Carton. Good morning, Catherine.
How are you?
Hi.
And it is true at this time of year you go, we'll just forget about the garden now till the spring. But
So-
if you want the flowers for next year, you have to be thinking now.
Yeah, so a lot of people would actually argue and say that autumn is the start of the gardening year because that's when you plan
For
your
next
garden
year.
for next year. So springtime. And a lot of bulbs, especially the likes of snowdrops here and crocus, a lot of them will actually start to flower in January time. You can get ones that will flower early.
Okay.
And they're great for pollinators and stuff. So there's lots of different varieties. I have some here that are kind of the most common. So you've
I
got...
suppose we always think when you're coming into spring, the daffodils. Once you
Yeah.
start seeing the daffodils,
Yeah,
you're
you
going,
start
it's the start
daffodils.
of spring.
So within each plant, so daffodils and tulips, you can get different varieties. So with tulips, you can get ones that will flower early. You can get ones that have double heads. The same with daffodils as well. So I think we just see in the supermarket, there'll be a big bag of yellow daffodils, but you can actually get different varieties. Like you can get, white ones with like different colours and stuff.
So same with the crocuses and stuff. If you go up to kind of your local garden centre and you say to someone, I do want some flowering, some early flowering flowers,
So
they will be like, okay, get these specific ones.
Yeah, they'll give you advice, but also just check the packet because the packet will have all the info on how deep to plant it, how close to plant them as well. So yeah, they're early flowering varieties, but you can also get ones that'll flower up until May time.
May.
Yeah, so plants like alliums here, that looks like a huge bulb there, but alliums will flower up until May, and they're the ones that have the big purple head on them. So you'll see them at the garden shows, they're very fancy. So they will flower up until May time. You can also get tulips that'll flower up until May as well.
Lovely.
And then when it comes to planting as well, a lot of people are like, oh my God, have I put it in upside down? How do I know what way to put it up? So in general, the rule is pointy side up. But if in doubt, just lay it on its side and it'll find its way.
Will it?
It will find its way, yeah. They'll start kind of growing
But they're all a
upwards.
bit pointy, so just pointy side
So
up.
things like these ones, like the alliums and stuff, that you could get a bit confused with that one, so you could just put it in on its side.
Gotcha.
If in doubt,
'cause you wouldn't
they
really
find their
know which
way.
is the-
Yeah.
That's it. Is it that one?
No, that one.
Oh, now, okay.
That one. Yeah, so if in doubt, put it on its side.
Okay,
Right,
life will
okay.
find a way.
So,
Now,
containers.
we mentioned something about
lasagna.
Lasagna. What's going on, Catherine?
This is really a popular method.
Okay, so this, we put it there
Yeah.
like that so we see it.
I hope it doesn't fall out.
No, it won't. There you go.
So I cut a pot in half just to give you an idea. So a lot of people will layer spring bulbs in a container. So you can start with tulips at the bottom because they need to be planted the deepest. And these ones will come up around about April time.
But can I just ask you?
Yeah.
So the tulips will grow up through all this
it will.
and come out the top,
Yeah.
even though all these are here.
Yeah, magic. It will.
Really?
And then you can have a second bulb that will come up sooner. So I have a hyacinth here, but you can actually pop in a daffodil. And then at the top, you have the smaller bulbs. So you could do the likes of, I have some snowdrops here. So you could do snowdrops on the top, or you could have crocus. Snowdrops and crocus are also really nice growing in grass. So you can never see.
You would need to know which is the furthest ones down. So the the
tulips and daffodils.
Tulips or daffodils at the bottom, and
If
then
in doubt, they do say to plant double the height of the bulb. So you would need to put this at the bottom because then it will be
double and a half.
And then that's why the little ones go on the top because they don't have to be planted is deep.
Okay.
But if you can, the deeper the better with bulbs if you can.
And will they all flower at different times?
They will. So this is around about January, February, March, and then you have like April, May.
So this
and
is where the time comes. Wow.
I just put some winter violas on top, so you can pop these, and that'll be your cover over winter. They'll just die off. You can cut them back, and then the crocus will come up, and then the next one. So as one is dying off, you have another one coming.
And you see, if you have a pot like that and you've planted like that, and they come up next spring, will they keep coming up every year, or do you have to replant?
No, what you can do is, with bulbs, you have to let them die back. So with daffodils, you'll start to see them kind of going yellow, and you might be tempted to cut them. You're actually supposed to leave them to let the goodness go back into the bulb for next year's growth. But they do come back every year. But what a lot of people do with containers, they'll take them out of the container and they'll store them just in any old pot and reuse their pot for summer flowers.
You don't deadhead them the way some people are saying deadhead.
No, not with these. You can deadhead them, but then you need to let the foliage go yellow and die back. Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing with our flowers at the front now. We were just told, and I want to go, and it's like, no, leave them die. Yeah, leave them for winter to die back so that they'll come back next year.
Is there anything around at the moment that will still give you a bit of colour for the next few weeks?
Things like this. You've got like heucheras, the last of like. Not really.
Not much, yeah.
Your cyclamens.
This is what winter is.
Yeah. No, I know, but you know, like even till the end of October. But this, I've never seen this before, because I would have thought if that was down there, it would never get through.
And
all
also,
that.
you don't have to do 3. So you could do. I have mascari here, and you can actually see this one is starting to grow.
Here.
So this is one from my garden. I forgot about it, and it actually flowered last December for me. Yeah.
So it's going to come up now again.
And just a little tip: a lot of people say, "Oh, I did a lasagna bulb and it didn't flower for me," and they think that maybe the frost got it. But the problem is the soil is too damp. So make sure you mix in a bit of grit and then just dress the top of it as well. And so too much water over winter.
So a bit of grit, and you can leave them outside.
Yeah, don't let them get soggy.
Don't let them get soggy.
But
a little bit of grit.
Okay.
This is, it's amazing.
Thank you so much for all that.
Where can people find you?
DailyDressDiaries.com.
There you go.
It's so gorgeous. Go and just smile at the lovely things that Catherine does. Catherine, thank you so much once again. It's so nice. Now, tomorrow morning we are going to be back where we'll be getting an expert's tip on sleep techniques. And Aoife Gary tells us about her dalliance in poetry.
Plus, we meet the woman who hugged 52 peaks in 52 weeks. See you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Wear a coat.